Okay, this video is in reference to our natural selection lab for our biology class. First question was, what is your definition of natural selection? And I would have to say mine's pretty simple. It's just survival of the fittest. Organisms with favorable traits and adaptations to their environment will reproduce, while organisms with less favorable traits will be eliminated over time and stop reproducing. Question 2 is, what is your definition of adaptation? Mine is an organism that becomes better adapted to his or her environment. Simple enough, but I always like to use the example of birds' beaks. There are just hundreds of millions of different species of birds out there, and all of their beaks have adapted over time to do different types of things. I mean, you've got beaks that are good for fishing, beaks that are good for better for smaller things like bugs, and so I think that's a really good example of adaptation in the environment. My favorite part of either video, well, both videos were very, very interesting. I think the first one is the better one because it's just such a simple example of adaptation in the environment. I think Ella said in her video that it is so simple. It's just black mice and white mice, and it's so simple that you could explain it to children. And I also think it's probably the best example to use for people who are non-believers of evolution and natural selection, because it is such a simple example that it's hard to dispute the evidence. And the second video was very compelling because it was actually dealing with humans themselves, that we were actually witnessing adaptation and evolution and natural selection happening before our eyes in human beings. So I thought that was very interesting. I still have some questions about, I think Joshua even touched on it in his video. He was wondering why was sickle cell more apparent in people of African descent? How did they contract that disease in the first place? And I was also wondering, how did that sickle cell fight off the malaria virus? They did mention that it had some beneficial factors, but they didn't really explain that in depth. Also, I think Marina, in her video, mentioned, were the mice the only animals that were undergoing this type of mutation in that area? What about the owls and the snakes and the coyotes? Were they also undergoing any type of mutation or adaptation due to either the black lava or due to perhaps maybe the fact that their food source was mutating and therefore, they had to mutate as well? So I was kind of wondering about that. Some selective pressures for humans in the future, I think the big ones are going to be obviously like drug resistance and constant mutations with cancers and flus and colds and all these viruses and diseases that we already have a difficult time, fighting off. So I think that's going to be a big factor in the future. And of course, like everyone else is mentioning, pollution is going to be a really big one, because we're either going to have to, change things about the way we do things in life, or we're going to have to adapt and figure out a way to live with such high levels of pollution and, depleting water sources. And so I think it's all going to be pretty interesting how everything plays out in the future. So thanks for watching.